Hey, Julia Barzyk here from Wise Investigator. Today, I wanted to talk a bit about protecting the time that you need to get your very important work done. So it's summer. We're just over the 4th of July holiday. We're still in the weekend, but this is a time when a lot of you have planned to spend time writing papers, writing proposals, doing that very important but oftentimes not urgent work that falls in that category that can be easy to set aside for those urgent things. And now that we've crossed over out of June into July, we can be starting to feel more pressure to accomplish these things because we're really halfway through the summer, right? And so if you haven't made as much progress on those things that you were planning to do, quote unquote, this summer, and now's the time when you can really start to feel a little pressure for that. Okay, so the first thing to keep in mind here is that if you are struggling with this, you are not failing. The system that you're working within contains many different responsibilities and things that are pulling you in many different directions. So there would not be a way for you to accomplish all of the things that are possibly expected of you or that you might expect of yourself to the absolute highest standard. So that's the first thing to remember, is that you are not failing here. This is not a shortcoming on your part. It's also important to remind ourselves exactly why protecting time to do this deep work, this important work, that not urgent work, matters. So there is a big why, or quite a few whys behind this. And that would be that your big ideas, your big papers, these are things that are not going to come together when you're scraping together 10 or 15 minutes between meetings or other commitments. So these are the most impactful things that are going to propel you towards those promotions and big opportunities, expansion in terms of bringing on students, hiring people. These very important but not urgent things are not going to come together unless you have intentionally blocked time for them. And in case unless you have time for them, the only way that you're going to have time for them is to block time for them. Now, even in the summer, you can be called into departmental duties, things that you say yes to out of a feeling of obligation, new items that might be needed for your tenure package that you weren't expecting. And yeah, that happened to a client recently, right? So you also may have the feeling that you need to be constantly available for your students, for peers in your department. And it's normal for those in early career stages, or even just people with a certain kind of high work ethic, which I know you all have, to feel that that's an obligation for you to be constantly available. But the idea of setting boundaries is something that can feel difficult at first, but it's actually a learned skill. So to set those boundaries, if you're not used to doing that, know that it's not because you're doing something wrong or there's something wrong for you to be doing, but that you haven't learned that skill yet. And you can learn the skill, and then it will become easier to set and enforce those boundaries over time. So, what are some ways that you could start on the process of getting this stuff, getting these blocks of time available for you so you can get this important stuff done? Okay, so just think about a couple things here, and this is certainly not the a final list. There's many different creative ways you could go about this, but one thing you could do would be to create just one non-negotiable block each week, even if it's just 1 to 2 hours. And you treat this like your time that you would be teaching, where people know you're teaching and they're not going to drop in on you when you're in front of a lecture hall. So if you can start the process of setting boundaries and blocking time, even with just 1 or 2 hours each week, that can be something that will get you going to the point that you're able to block more time to actually get more done, right? So the other things you can consider doing are closing down your windows, of like browser windows, email, putting your phone in another room, putting it in a drawer, and communicate to people ahead of time if you need to. I'm going offline. I'm going to be back at this time, whether that's colleagues, students, family, etc. So you can also experiment with getting up early in the mornings. Now, this is something that works well for me, and it might work well for you if even if it hasn't worked well for you in the past, because as we go through different life stages and aging and just different family situations, different schedules, you may find that there are times that work for you that did not work for you in the past. Just because you're thinking of yourself as, oh, I'm a night owl. I mean, I thought of myself that way for many years. I'm a night owl. I'm a night owl. And I did get a lot of work done at night when I was younger. And now I'm able to get a lot of work done in the mornings. So just because something hasn't worked for you in the past, it may have been 5 years or something since you tried that. And you may find that it does work for you now. So keep that open mind. Don't just categorically say, that's not going to work for me, because it may. Okay, I'm back. So I wanted to grab this. This is a timer, and you can consider using the Pomodoro method, which means that you're going to, and my battery's out here, but what you can do is just you can get a timer like on your phone, of course, but if you're trying to get away from your phone, you might put your phone in another room, then you can get a little clock like this, and you can just turn it. And if you turn it to, for example, 30 minutes or 45 minutes, then it's just going to go off at that time, and then you can just turn it over to do like a unit of time. And I used a 60-minute time. Probably most of you all can too. I think on average we probably do have a bit longer attention spans, or we're used to working for a longer amount of time. So maybe for some people, they are going to start with the 15-minute or a 25-minute block. The typical starter block for Pomodoro was 25 minutes, but you can probably do an hour or 2 hours. When I'm using this method, I generally will do 2 hours. So I'll do one 60-minute block and then another 60-minute block. And I go some months without using this at all, but then I'll find that for whatever reason, this is appealing to me. I really want to get my phone away from my desk. I have certain things I'm trying to do that kind of aren't getting done, and I'll pull this out. So a few times a year, I'll go through a couple week period where I am using this, and it works for me. And then I put it away and I don't use it for some time. Okay, so to wrap up, now a few hours a week to start does not sound like a lot, but it will add up to being better than doing nothing. Absolutely. Sometimes if you're in the zone, you can get a lot done in 2 hours. Keep in mind too, one point to make here though, is that if you're really feeling like you need a break, and in your heart of hearts that you're probably not going to be that productive, acknowledge that, and don't just sit home at your desk all day waiting to get the work done or waiting for that energy or motivation to hit. Go ahead and take that time off, right? Because we've all made that mistake too, where we stay close to the office or the computer because we're thinking, oh, we need to do this, when we would have just been better off to take a break, go out and do something and come back. So keep that in mind as well. But now the hours will add up. They will allow you to do something that you were not able to do otherwise. And you will get practiced in the idea of setting boundaries and enforcing those boundaries. So once again, I want to thank you all for the work that you're doing, because this quiet work, this behind the scenes work, this is the really, really important work. And we are in a very difficult situation right now, but it's this quiet work that pushes us all forward as a society, because of the important knowledge that you're generating and the contributions you're making with these big efforts, these big papers, the big proposals, and the big new ideas to pursue. So I encourage you to make the time for that. There is still a lot of time left in the summer, and now is a good time to make sure that we're all making the most of it.